let's talk about Mel. I might be a little bit too late to the party. I mean, talking about Mel was a hot topic when she was initially revealed. That's when we got all of her abilities, which is what everyone talked about, and lo and behold, that was 2 weeks ago. But it just so happens to be that after this time, something really cool bubbled to the surface. And thankfully, it is just a quick topic we can talk about. No, really, I hope this video is below 15 minutes, damn it. But it's something really weird that happened to League of Legends. It is something we haven't seen in a while. Normally, whenever a new champion is released or revealed, for one reason or another, they always get memed. We have not had a clean reveal in a while. And that's because these days, whenever Riot releases a new champion, they need to make sure that champion is unique. This is mainly because they dialed down the number of new champions that is coming out, and so when a new champion comes out, they need to be impactful. And so if you go back through the new champion releases, you'll notice that pretty much every single one of them got memed for some reason. With some, like Cassante, just becoming infamous legends at this point. But really, just going back, we have Ambassa, who got memed for mobility creep. Whether or not she ended up being balanced didn't matter, the fact is, she got memed. Before that, we got Aurora, who got memed for being uncatchable in the hands of a pro. What didn't help was all the movement speed and the resets. Before that, we got Smolder. Everyone still has nightmares about that one. Before that, we got Hui. Now arguably, Hui, pretty good overall, but he was definitely memed for being overly complex. He wasn't too far away from the Aphelios treatment. Before that, we got Briar, who was getting pentakills without touching the keyboard, also feet. Before that, we got Nafiri, who had all those ridiculous one-shots. And it's not until we get to Melio, who was the last champion in League of Legends who was okay. Some could argue that he was just really good at healing, but he was in line with someone like Nami, who was also really good at that time. The catch is, Melio was the first champion of 2023. Let that sink in. And again, before him we got Cassante, which was a whole another nightmare. And so, if we fast forward to today and we have a look inside Mel, there's nothing. No, like really, this is an unbelievable achievement. League of Legends came out with a new champion and people are seemingly happy? This is especially weird because it's been 2 weeks and people are still fine. Sure, people can point out some extreme situations with perfectly timed reflections. But if you just snoop around the internet and you really try, it is just very difficult to find any negative posts about her. This is so strange, I just started my own research just to be sure, and yeah. It seems like people actually like Mel. But the reason why this happened is not so simple. This actually has way too many layers. I mean, Mel is a champion that greatly benefited from the Arcane effect. You know how anything that is tied to Arcane is just a guaranteed success. Doesn't matter if it is the show, or merge, or champions, or yes, okay, the VGU is like 50-50. But outside of that, Mel herself is a champion that was entirely set up in Arcane. After that, she got her own cinematic, which became so popular in 5 days it broke all the cinematic view records. After that, she got almost shadow dropped as a new champion in League of Legends. Like sure, before this you could have seen some leaks and stuff like that, but she wasn't officially announced until after the cinematic came out. And of course, that means that Mel is just fully integrated into the new season. Yes, we just got a motion comic about Mordekaiser and LeBlanc, which was absolutely awesome, but from the files, it is possible there might be another motion comic about Mel. Nothing confirmed there are just some teasers. And so now, the stakes with Mel are incredibly high. Can you imagine if after all of this setting up, Mel became a meme? But thankfully, that's not the case, and so Mel is almost becoming a big payoff. On top of that, as a little cherry on top, her voice lines in-game are good. On top of her just having cool interactions with other champions, there are also some cool references to Arcane. It's just a shame that statistically all the people who got hyped by Arcane played the game for like 1 hour and then they quit. But even her abilities are good, and they also have some lore references. But here's the thing, while Mel is not being memed for anything extreme, it could potentially also be the case because she might be seen as underwhelming. This is just really hard to confirm because if people are not interested in a champion, they just don't talk about the champion. So it is really hard to get a read on the audience. But in general, based on the cinematics and based on anything that's happening around Arcane, it seems like people are interested in Mel. They like the character, they like the champion. And nothing bad is coming out of it. Which again, is so weird. Especially because her kit actually has a lot of baits towards the community. I mean, let's quickly go through it. Mel is a mage that is not supposed to be all about bursting, that is unless the enemy reflects their own abilities against themselves, and instead it is supposed to be more of a sustain champion, where she is slowly chipping off of the enemy until they can be executed. In fact, that is exactly what her passive plays into. As part of her passive, which yes, that passive is the Medarda logo, for every hit with her auto attack or her ability, she puts a stack on the enemy which allows them to be executed. But these executes are not active until they reach a certain amount of stacks. One could say this might be a reference to Darius, which also stacks up until it reaches the maximum damage on the execute, but that would be just reaching. The catch is that after this is fully stacked up, additional stacks just increase the range of the execute. Which means no matter how tanky you are, eventually if Mel keeps attacking you, she will execute you. This is just about the closest thing that got Mel to being memed. But somehow, no. I don't know if it's because people haven't played her enough, but now it's been 2 weeks and still no one really has issues with this mechanic. This could be because the passive is designed so that Mel can burst like half of the enemy HP with her ultimate, and then she can slowly chip off the rest until she reaches the execute. I mean, that is the plan, it is supposed to take a little bit for it to ramp up. But yes, if Mel is ahead, when she puts all of her abilities together, with a perfect combo, she is able to just one-shot you with the execute. Which means that Mel is surprisingly really good at snowballing. I feel like when she finally launches on live servers, that is what the players might finally pick up on. Also, rather than how Darius is stacking his own passive, I believe this is actually a reference to her own mother. Because remember, Ambassa also has an ability called Public Execution. But this might be just a coincidence, there are far better references coming later. But next, we have her first proper ability, which is her Q, which deals damage in an area. And that's it. There are no speed increases, no 3-hit passives, no dashing. It's just damage. Like, is this even a League of Legends champion? But then of course we get to the big ability, which is not her ultimate, it is her W, and that is the Spell Reflect. It is a barrier that is up only for a few moments, and if you time it with the enemy ability, you just perfectly reflect it back. No matter if it is a targeted ability or if it is a skill shot. It should always track back to the original target. And you know what this is a reference to? Probably not her abilities from the show, we still have no idea what she did there. But as you can see here, Mel technically has a parry mechanic. It is not too different to playing something like Dark Souls, where you just have a quick reaction button to parry the enemy attack. Which is exactly what Ambassa also has on her W. That's right, both the daughter and the mother have a parry on their W. Except one is physical and the other one is magical. That is the cool lore reference in the kit. And so yeah, you would expect this ability to be heavily memed, but again, not really. And that's because this ability is just heavily dependent on skill. That window to parry is incredibly small. But also it is bright and it is visible and you can easily play around it. Mel's survival and her damage output actually relies on this reflection. Meaning that if you know that she has her reflect up, and it should be up, it has like 25-second cooldown, you can try to just not use your big abilities and beat her regardless. Not to mention you can't reflect something like Master Yi or Tryndamere, I think. So she is likely gonna be very vulnerable to physical damage, which is very much in line for a mage. So far, somehow, her W is fine too. Also, it is crazy to see how this ability actually properly works with the vast majority of abilities in the game. Vandrel actually has a really cool video just showing all of the possible interactions, including some shenanigans with Urgot. But then, Mel also has her E, which is a root that she throws out. It is kinda similar to Lux's Q, and despite the range looking massive, only the very center of that ability is a root. The circle around it is just a slow with some damage. So again, very comparable to Lux. And lastly, her ultimate is something like a Karthus ult. It is global damage that only damages enemies that have Mel's passive stacks on them. And it deals more damage if the enemies have the passive fully stacked up. So while technically it has global range, you still have to hit the enemies, so it's not that global. And yeah, this should be the big burst that will get you closer to executing your target. But again, you need the setup from your root, then you have your Q, which is the main damage, with your W just sitting there, defensively. After which, Mel just gets closer in to auto-attack the enemy, and that is kinda it. So from all of these, everyone immediately realized that Mel has a clear counter. She has no mobility. I know, it's crazy, this is League of Legends, where did it all go? It is mandatory that every champion has at least one dash. But somehow, Mel has no dashes. I repeat, there is no mobility creep. And so overall, even this kit just landed with the community quite well. But that is not all, because next we also get to Mel's skin. And I'll be honest, this is a great one. I don't know who got the idea to give people the Mel from the Arcane show as a skin, because this is awesome. Despite the fact that yes, we are just paying for a lore skin, but hey, I think things are gonna get a lot worse. And here I just really appreciate the fact that they didn't try to do something like an alternative universe. Because that's what Riot normally does. They release a champion and they immediately give them a skin from a skin line that already exists. Or what they used to do for the last 3 years, they released a champion and they immediately shoved them into a new skin line. Statistically, those were more likely to sell, apparently. But now, after Arcane, it seems like people are really interested in the lore of League of Legends. I know, what a wild thing to say. And so it's crazy to see that a launch skin for a new champion is actually a lore skin. This is a massive gamble from the statistical point. But again, it is the Arcane effect, and so people just really like this one. Which brings us to the one critique that Mel is getting on the internet. People agree that her animations are okay. And that is simply because her cloak is not really that fluid. Like, we know that League has the tech where you can have like physics-based objects following the characters. And so that's what people expected for Mel's cloak, but apparently that one is just hard animated. Also, it seems like the cloak itself is quite limited in the polygons. It does have quite sharp edges, and so people memed that Mel looks like a champion that came out like 4 years ago. And yes, I definitely agree with that. Maybe Riot did this to keep the animation skeleton simple, so that when they design skins for her, it is just easier to map. But overall, if this is the only flaw a new champion has, hey, I would mark that as a success. And so right now, the one thing that Mel may be memed for is the fact that she is normal. Like, that is something we have not seen in a while.